do I need to get a medical note if I need accommodation?
Yeah, so the answer is it depends. Obviously, that's a very lawyerly answer, but
One day we're going
if
to
you had
actually
asked,
have Rob put a counter on, and we're going to count how many times we say that.
right, exactly. And if you would have asked me this question pre-COVID, I would say, generally yes, and sort of go on to talking about accommodation and the request for medical notes. But I think in light of the pandemic, we have to be mindful that a lot of things have changed. So generally, an employer does have the right to understand the functional limitations of an employee's job duties in order to be able to accommodate them. And what that essentially means is, how is the limitation impacting your ability to do your job? And that's the only thing that matters from the employer's perspective. And that's all they should really want to know about, and all that they should be entitled to know about. So they can ask you to provide a medical note, but they can't ask you for your entire medical file or even what the diagnosis is. That would be irrelevant. That said, if you can't work due to COVID-19, you are not required to show a medical note as proof of entitlement for the infectious disease emergency leave, or IDEL, as Stuart said. Now, having said that, the employer may require you to provide other evidence that is reasonable in the circumstances at a time that is reasonable in the circumstances. And I'm laughing because the language obviously is going to create a lot of uncertainty for employers and employees alike. But what that essentially means is that it could include requests such as a note from the daycare saying that they're going to be closed due to COVID, or evidence that, let's say, the airline had canceled a flight. So those types of evidence can be requested because they would be seen as reasonable in the circumstances. Obviously, it's going to depend on the context and the situation, but generally, in light of the pandemic, if, let's say, you're currently going to be asked to work in person physically from the office, and your child is going to daycare, but all of a sudden the daycare had to close, you're probably going to need some sort of accommodation from your employer. And at that point, the employer can reasonably ask you to provide such evidence.
Yeah, no, it gets, thanks, Nadia. It gets very complicated. And even before COVID, there was so much debate about whether or when you could ask for doctor's notes. And it'd actually be a good topic for a show if we get people on opposite side of the debates to talk about that, because it can be very challenging as an employer when you have an employee saying, I need to be accommodated, but then they refuse to provide any documentation. And a lot of employers are terrified of asking because they feel as though doing so will be a breach of the employee's privacy rights. So it's important to understand what your rights are. But of course, it's not always easy to understand that. And I know we're going to come back to the whole privacy versus safety issue later, because it often it does depend. It depends very much on the circumstances.